The world is created by people, and you can make anything you want if you decide to do it. Get the right people together.
Welcome to your weekly elevation, your dose of real strategies for real results in dance music. I'm Olivia, and today's conversation is with someone who's redefined what it means to pivot in your career. Justin Kan went from co-founding Twitch, yes, that Twitch, one of the most influential platforms in streaming history, to pursuing his passion for music. But this isn't just another story about a tech entrepreneur dabbling in a new hobby. After selling Twitch to Amazon for nearly $1 billion, Justin could have done anything, but he chose to build something meaningful in music, creating Titanic's End, a massive art car and community that's become a fixture at Burning Man and is now also a label. What makes this conversation so valuable is Justin's perspective on finding fulfillment beyond traditional success. From building a 70-foot iceberg with 200,000 LEDs to learning to DJ while constructing it, his journey offers powerful insights about following your passion, building community, and finding joy in the process rather than just the outcome. Let's dive in. I don't know how we're going to fit in everything that you do and have done in a 30, 40-minute conversation, but just to set the context for my listeners, you've built $1 billion company and now you're making music, you're running a label. Can you just walk me through that transition of what made you decide to take a step in the music direction?
Sure. Yeah. It's, my name's Justin. I've been a technology entrepreneur for the last 20 years, building different companies. The one that people haven't heard about is Twitch, the live streaming company. And, spent a lot of I started off as an engineer, I was programming, building websites, and had my whole career in tech. And along the way, I lived in San Francisco in the Bay Area. In 2011, I went to Burning Man for the first time, which was an incredible experience, really changed my life, really opened me up to art and music in a way that I'd never experienced before. So really got into building art at Burning Man. And I built this art car in 2014 called Titanic's End. For the listeners out there who don't know about art cars at Burning Man, people kind of modify vehicles and turn them into kind of mobile works of art. Sometimes they have really big sound systems on them, or lasers, LEDs. So people have heard of maybe Robot Heart or Mayan Warrior, which are these big art cars that people love and now do shows outside of Burning Man. But when I got to Burning Man, I was like, okay, everyone cool here seems to have this an awesome art car. So I got really into it and I started brainstorming ideas and eventually had this idea for building one that was an iceberg called Titanic's End back in 2014. I learned how to weld and, fabricate to build this kind of crappy first version of Titanic's End, which is this 30-foot long iceberg built around a freezer truck. So you could kind of go inside. It's like a mobile ice cream truck beforehand. And you go inside. It was cold in there. And we brought it to the desert for a couple of years, had a lot of fun. And I kind of stopped going to Burning Man for a couple of years. And during the pandemic, I had been gone for so long. I was like, I have to go back. So there was this renegade burn. That was the unofficial Burning Man. I wasn't supported by the org. And I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to go. Went with my friends. And we had such a great time there. And it was such a talented crew. I was like, we should build something that is going to show the world how awesome this crew is. What a great group of artists and engineers and, talented group this is. And so I had this idea of bringing our art car Titanic's End back. So we kind of just took the energy and momentum from going to Renegade Burn back in 2021. And we're like, all right, let's build something awesome. And I'm the type of person where whenever there's the option to go bigger or do something, go lean in more, I'm like, yeah, we should do it. So started off as V2 of the old art car, but then the dimensions got bigger. It was like, oh, can we make this around? Like, how can we make it the biggest one out there? Like, how can we make it? We decided to make it 70 feet long and 36 feet high, and put 200,000 LEDs on it, and put, like a huge laser system on it, and a custom Danley sound system, 125,000 watt sound system on it. And so just kind of the ruined scope and proportions until we had this like plan that was really awesome looking, really, really massive. But, it was like, how are we going to build this? And then followed about a 10-month sprint where we just, worked all around, like all the time. I mean, it was like a part-time job for all these people. Like it was a volunteer community of about 100 people to build it. So we built this
sorry to interrupt you. I just saw photos on a Reddit thread. Somebody has like an album of the build out, and it looks insane. Have you seen that thread by any chance?
I don't think so, actually. No.
Yeah. Well, I got archival footage of it, and it's so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, like it was such a labor of love to build. And when we were building it, we were like, we think this is going to be cool, but none of us ever really built any art on this scale before. And, it was everything from like fabricating the structure to we built like a custom LED integration and like software that would like let us, let people almost like remix on the fly the lighting show and make it sound reactive. So if it, goes along with the DJ set or whatever, it's basically a huge sound stage. And then we also like planned almost like a mini festival where we did 6 days of content of like house and techno music, which is, what we love, what I love. And so then we got out there, we made it work. Like the last 3 weeks of building this car, people are like sleeping at my house in Northern California, like 20 deep, they're like around the clock. Like people took time off their work or like sabbaticals from their jobs to like work on this project. And we didn't know if it was going to get done. It was, like didn't look very good. Like 6 weeks before it was like 30% completed, and so we finally get it out there. We're building it. It took a whole week to build. Like there was sandstorms that year during the build day, process. And the pieces didn't quite fit together because it was the first time we'd ever like assembled it. So, it was a huge lift, and we finally got it working like the Monday night of Burning Man, and then just had like an incredible, week of throwing like awesome parties. And during the process, I had like learned to DJ because I was like, we were spending so much effort and energy to build this thing. One of my friends who was a DJ and was working on the project, Sky, was like, he was just like teaching me in the kitchen, like after, while we were working on this, like in between time, we were literally working on this thing. So I was like, okay, that's awesome. And then we, there was one night or one morning I remember where at Burning Man where the artist didn't show up. It's Burning Man, it's kind of chaotic. People like just sometimes like no show, or like they get caught in a dust storm or something happens, And so I just hopped on with Sky, who taught me how to DJ, and we were like playing back to back. And I remember having like the most fun I'd had since I can remember. I was like, this is like the best experience I've had in like, since I've been an adult, basically. And, that includes like, I don't know, selling Twitch and starting these companies and like all these things I've been blessed to do, like have these amazing experiences. So it's like, I need to like figure out how to do more of this. And I remember a couple of weeks later, I was in LA and I was in at Sound nightclub, and which is like my favorite club. And someone who was at Burning Man was there, and they were like, hey, that set that was on Saturday morning, Friday night, it was like Saturday sunrise. That was like my favorite one of the art car. And I was like, that was the one that I played. And so I was like, wow, that was amazing. And I thought to myself, like I should do this like more in the real world. I should find more opportunities to DJ and share music in the real world. And so that's kind of what got me started in trying to like lean in on the music side. Yeah.
Wow. It's an incredible story. So when you went to that first Burning Man, were you already a house and techno fan, or was it just more of like an exploratory experience for you and then you got into the music?
No, I was already a fan, actually. I've been listening to house and techno music since I was a kid, actually, since for over, I guess, probably in the mid 90s, actually. I was, there was a radio station in Seattle. I grew up in Seattle. And there's a radio station there that's kind of a nonprofit radio station, or it's a public radio station run by like a high school called C89.5. It's like a not famous, but like it was like a pioneer because they played like a bunch like house music all the time, like electronic music. That was my favorite radio station. I'd listen to that like all the time. And I remember, it was like the early, well, I don't know, it was like an early era, right, of this kind of music. I'd listen to like, I don't know, there's a lot of European artists that were on it, like Fragma. That was I remember that was my favorite. Yeah. So
it's
funny. I was listening for a long time. Yeah.
I started listening in high school. So I was a freshman in 2006, and I started listening to like the more Euro, like David Guetta, like before he was the David Guetta he is today. And like even like hard style, like show tech, which I'm not into that anymore, but I was the weird kid for being into that music back then. And I'm sure you were too. Nobody really listened to it. And so it's just crazy to see the evolution. And it's exciting, but it was for weird kids back in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah, for sure. It was not very popular at all. Like nobody really liked it. Everyone liked hip hop,
Yep. So the art car came first, right? And then the label spawned off of that.
Yeah. So we I guess what happened in the intervening time is like, so after I got back in Burning Man to 2022. So it was about 3 years ago. I was like, okay, I should figure out how to do the like lean in here. And I had become like a pretty decent DJ, I think. And I think I like understand how to tell a story through music, through like a DJ set. And I love just so many different types of music that it's pretty easy to like expose people to something new, through my own interest in the music I like. I didn't have the equivalent skills on the production side because I was like, okay, I haven't spent my 10,000 hours in front of Ableton or FL Studio, right? Like I need to like lean in and learn some things. So I just like, as I usually do, I like when I'm interested in something, I just like try to meet people in the space. And so I ended up meeting a friend, now a very good friend, who was like a friend of a friend. His name is Strive. Hamid he's the producer Strive. And so he started teaching me, like we just became friends. He started teaching me how to like produce, and we would like make music together and hang out in LA. And so he ended up, after a while, I realized he didn't know how to DJ. Like, it's funny. He was like producing music for like 15 years, since he was 11 years old, but he'd never DJed before. So I taught him how to DJ, and then he taught me how to, was teaching me how to produce. And then we decided, okay, let's make like a, electronic music, an artist project together. And so we created this project Orso together, and just started making music together. And then last year, he's like the driving force of producing. I mean, I would still consider myself like very, very amateur. And so he like made this song about a house. We were like kind of doing a little music camp, just him and I and our other friend who introduced us, Nick. And he made what became this track Move with Adam Port. Like, so he created the track, and then like he had been talking to Adam, because Adam had liked one of the songs that he made for someone else as a producer. And so like launched that song last year, and then he like on the back of that and like his production success, we kind of like created this music label together around our community, Titanic Send. So Titanic Send Records, and we just launched the first single the next one we produced.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I want to get into like the community building aspect of this, but I have to ask, I've interviewed so many artists on this show who have credited Twitch to being able to monetize, like to make money, especially when times, in pandemic times. And they've credited it to being such a community building platform in a way that they interact with their fans, in ways that they couldn't before. So how have you drawn from, like, did you know, I guess it's just interesting. Did you know that Twitch was going to be such a big platform for DJs? And how has that kind of informed your experience now being an artist yourself?
I had no idea. Like, of course, I'd be totally lying if I said I did. I think it's interesting because when we started off, we thought, Twitch came from this company called Justin TV, which is like a more like YouTube for streams. So anyone could stream anything. This is back in like 2007 to 2011 era. That's how we started. And then we narrowed the focus down to Twitch because we were just like, we need more focus, and gaming seems like a vertical that's working already on the site. And it's like, we're interested in that. So we've like really refocused kind of more narrowly on gaming. And then now it's, grown back into having all of these different, people just doing general entertainment or talking to their viewers, or chess streamers, music. So it kind of did go back to fulfill the original dream that we had of, all sorts of streaming on the internet. But it's really cool to watch. Like, during the pandemic, I watched a lot of DJ streams, and it was really awesome to see a lot of my own favorite artists streaming, on Twitch. And so,
it filled a void. It filled a void for so many of us. Like, it was really, especially because like you can't get the same experience on the other platforms where artists stream. So it really solved a major problem.
Yeah, you don't get that same hyped energy as like, when it's like on different platforms on YouTube or something that's a little bit more like corporate feeling, like Twitch has that like internet culture energy, which is cool.
It's organic. Yeah. And so that really helped. It helped to launch a lot of careers for artists too, who weren't able to like, their $200 gigs they were getting at their local spots, like weren't cutting it. And now they have this whole revenue stream via Twitch, and people recognize them. Like, I interviewed this artist Whistleface, who like so many people were like, oh my God, like I love his streams. So was there any sort of like, you have so much experience in community building. How did you take that influence from your life in tech into Burning Man and to now building this community around your label? Where does the influence come from?
Yeah, I think the community is like the most important part. When we started this art car project, it was like not to make money or like build a business. It's really to build a piece of Burning Man art. Like that art, Burning Man, one of the core ethoses is like, not decommodification. So it's like, trying to build the projects that are like non-commercial, right? You're losing money generally bringing art to Burning Man, and often a lot. And so for me, it was like the community is most important. It started off as a group of friends. And I always say, now probably over 200 people have touched the project. And there've been every year, there's like new generations of new people who come and they want to volunteer and work on the project and camp with us. And we are doing things both at Burning Man and then also outside of Burning Man. But that core ethos stays the same. I always say it's community first. This is a group of friends who are like amazing artists, designers, musicians, producers, entrepreneurs, and engineers. And the point is to do awesome shit and like build something cool, or build multiple things that are cool, and build really amazing experiences for people. And so we have a like set of values that, that are important to the community, that we've kind of like articulated for ourselves. I don't need to go through all of them, but I think like having that shared ethos is really important. For example, one of them is like everybody in the community contributes to it. It's like everyone does work to build the art car, to bring this experience to Burning Man. Sometimes that work manifests in like the other projects that we're working on, or like helping out building this music label or throwing events outside of Burning Man that to raise money for the project. But like having that shared ethos of like contributing and doing something, is I think really important. One of my favorite parts about Burning Man is that it has this ethos of you are the creator of your own experience. So I don't know if you've ever been, but have you been to? Yeah, you'll have to come one day.
I don't know. I don't know about me. I'm not.
You're not
I'm
an
not
outside
for that. No, I'm not an
person.
outside cat. Yeah, that's what I.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a little bit, but I can't do it all day. But continue.
Yeah. It's well, one of the experiences there is kind of like the whole thing is made by the people who show up and come to Burning Man, and what I like about that is like, if you have an idea for something, like you want to sort of have a roller skating rink or a tennis court or a parade or like lectures, or build a giant iceberg, you just like, no one's giving you permission. You just do it, and like you are the creator of the experience for everybody else. And the whole experience, like the very little is curated and by the Burning Man organization. Like it's decentralized. And so like people just bring whatever they think is cool and fun and a gift to the playa. In your normal daily life, most people are consumers of most of their most of their day. They like go to a job that someone else designed or like defines what is like what they're supposed to do. They like buy products that someone else made and designed. They watch content that other people are creating. And most people are like consumers most of the time, even people who are like being creative some of the time. But I think Burning Man teaches you is that like you can create whatever experience you want in your own life and in the, in the world. And so I really like that ethos for our own community where, we really lean in on like everybody in this camp is a creator of the experience of what's happening here. And like, if you work on building it, you can make whatever you dream a reality. And so that's like how we thought about community and harnessing the power of community. And then that extends out to like the people, fans and people in the label and people who come to our events.
I'm really happy you shared that perspective because I don't know a lot about Burning Man, and what you just described is something I just beat a dead horse about that subject on my show because I get a lot of dissenters, on social media who say this is pointless. The industry's cooked. Everything's owned by 5 agencies. It's pointless to even try to like start something. It's like, well, if you don't like what's already out there, why don't you build your own shit? Like that is something that I preach over and over. And it's really interesting. I guess I knew the concept of Burning Man. I know about it, but I didn't really understand that anyone could just kind of create their own experience there. And I think that concept is starting to trickle more into dance music in general, where you see all the pop-ups in coffee shops and crossovers with wellness. And there's so many different, it's not just reserved for clubs now. And so I think that really should empower people to take the reins and create something if they don't like what's already out there.
Yeah, 100%. Like, the world is created by people and, you can make anything you want if you decide to do it, get the right people together.
Absolutely. Getting into your artistry, like as a DJ and trying your hand at production, what's been the biggest challenge for you?
I think like the probably technical parts on the production side are like the hardest,
really?
In terms of, well, it's just like, to learn something new, like as an adult, right? Like I think you really have to put in a huge amount of time. So, I've been blessed to partner with people who are like and produce things with people who are like way better producers than I am, to be honest. And so that's been, I'm like a really great, I think I have a, great understanding of like what kinds of sounds I want to make in the world right now. And then also like what music I love, I've just like gone through so many cycles of loving different eras of house music. And so it's fun to be able to, now like think about like what's next and like what sound is like, am I really into right now? And then, trying to like breathe life into that, it's not easy necessarily, but it's a fun new exploratory part of the brain. I've always like, for me, my creativity has always been more on the entrepreneurship side and like creating a company, or investigating a new industry and like how technology will affect it. And so this is like an entirely different part of the brain, which is like, it's always fun to learn something new, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed that you put out content too on YouTube, and you talk about being sober for, I think like five years now, right? And then you talk about money mindset. So do you get approached a lot by artists asking, just, I don't know, advice on building sustainable careers or being an entrepreneur?
A few artists actually, like like a couple friends who are like, I feel like I mentor a little bit. I like one of my, I have probably a lot of friends in tech and a few friends on the music side now that I like mentor a little bit with them in terms of mindset. I've kind of been through the whole experience myself of like being very extrinsically motivated to try to make it in the world and like often beating myself up a lot about like not making it enough. People are often surprised to hear it, but like even after selling Twitch, I was like still like, oh, I didn't do good enough. I like could have had a bigger company and like, I had other friends who were much more successful, than me. And so no matter who you are, you can always have that comparison mindset in an unhealthy way, And so the reason I make content on YouTube about that and about, creativity and entrepreneurship and not drinking, just to tell the story of like, my own life and try to impart some things that I learned along the way that really helped me. And it, means a lot. Like once in a while, or like fairly often, actually, I get emails or texts or DMs that are like, this really helped me, in some way. Or like, I remember people have said they quit drinking because of like me telling my sobriety story, or that they were depressed and then they like started working out and meditating because, I mentioned it, and stuff like that's like super meaningful to me, just to know that I like put some energy out there that may have helped someone along the way. I think artistry, or being an artist is like, can, just like being an entrepreneur, can be very mentally taxing and debilitating, right? Like you can get in your own head a lot about like the comparison mindset or whether you're doing good enough. I think it can be a very stressful job because there's this very irregular hours, irregular sleep, a lot of travel, a lot of isolation. And so I notice like friends of mine who are super famous DJs, like have a lot of times are like, oh my God, this is like not as good as it appears on the outside, or I feel taxed. And that's like totally natural and normal. And I hope, I think there's like a hesitation to talk about that as a DJ, because you're living this like idyllic party life that like a lot of people aspire to, and a lot of the vibe that you have to curate for, is like the fun, like, hey, this is awesome, like, you want to come and have a great time with me, right? And that's what people are buying when they buy a ticket. And so if you're like, oh my God, this is like too much, like that can be like, it's hard to put out there, and I think it's really brave for people who do put that out there. Like I know like John Summit, I'm a huge fan, he's like talked a little bit about like sometimes when it's like being on the road is like super stressful, and like, I think it's like really awesome when people are honest about that experience.
Agree. Yeah. He had just put out that he did his first tour sober. And then I saw Disco Lines posted about everything that you just said, and saying that he needs a break and he's looking for a therapist. And I do think it's so important to have these conversations to normalize it. And it's tough too, because I feel like the fans, especially the mega artists like the John Summit, say, oh, well, you have this amazing life, like you shouldn't be complaining. I make $12 an hour. And it's like, people don't give you, like, they don't give these artists space to be human. And so it's really important to have these vulnerable conversations. And like when I pick up, when I do interviews here in Chicago and I'm picking up some of my artist friends who are in town touring, I realize they're staying in like a hotel in a desolate area of the city. And like, they've got nothing to do until 2 a.m. And, so it's really like all of those factors I never realized until I was more integrated, that really can take a toll on your mental health.
Yeah, 100%. What I've learned is like through becoming a successful entrepreneur, it's like no matter who you are, you can be stressed, you have great days, you have tough days, it's like, that's part of the human experience. And like everybody is human, and has that experience.
Yeah. And I've heard from nearly every successful entrepreneur that I've spoken to or seen interviews, they always say, despite the fact that I did this big thing, like you were saying, it still sometimes doesn't feel good enough. And that is just, the human condition's interesting. And it's also proof that the journey is often 10 times more enjoyable than the end destination.
Yeah. Hey, you have to enjoy the journey. I think that's like one advice that is always like for entrepreneurship and for music, is like, if you're just focused on the end state, you're going to torture yourself. You have to like it. And I think there's a lot of artists and entrepreneurs, actually, is a common thing between artists and entrepreneurs, I think, that end up, and creators, actually, like you create something that's working, but you don't love it. And you're like, you're just kind of trapped because it's working. And then that's what you're doing now for like, years and years and years. And that can be like a really tough spot to be in, I think you have to enjoy the journey. You have to like do things you love to do. And the way I put it is like, I try to think about all the things I do, like, on music or entrepreneurship or with Titanic community. It's like, I only want to do things where like, if I made no money and they failed, like I wouldn't feel like I wasted time. Like I feel like I love doing that. I would pay to do that. The funny thing about DJing is like, I will pay to DJ because I like love DJing so much, like I want to do the things that I would pay to do if I like, and if I could do those things as a job, then that's incredible.
Yeah, that's a great litmus test. So what's the future for the label? What is your vision board when it comes to Titanic's End?
Yeah. So, it's all about community. And so for us, it's about how do we showcase some of the sounds that are coming out of our community, our extended community of friends from Burning Man, and like the people who are making music in our greater community. And so, that's where we're, putting out, hopefully we'll put out, somewhere between 8 and 10 records a year. But we're really focused on the live component too, like Titanic's End. It's like really a cool live experience, the lighting is really awesome. Like when you go from maybe sun, when it's like bright outside, you see this white iceberg, and then like the sun goes down and like the lighting comes up and lasers come up, and the lighting is, sound reactive. And like we have this very cool setup. We actually built an art car for the front of house, which is this giant alien spaceship. It's like, looks like a giant ellipsoid. And on the top floor of that, there's like a whole control booth that has like lighting and lasers. And the lighting controls will put like these custom MIDI control. We have like MIDI controllers that allow you to like basically mix the different lighting patterns on the fly.
Wow.
And so we have like a lot of guys with the software engineering background who are like really into art and music. So it was just like spent a lot of time building that stuff. So it's a really impressive show, and it's pretty cool. I think there's nothing in the world quite like it. And so we want to our goal is to bring it to a couple different cities this year and do shows. And so we're planning those out for the summer right now. I don't think it's not fully locked, so nothing to announce, but like we'll do some in California this year for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to look out for that. If you ever decide to come to the Midwest, I'll be front and center.
Yeah, we will eventually. Yeah, we want to. There's so many. I want to bring it all around. Like a part of it is just like create this platform for our own community to showcase their art, and bring it to more places around the U.S. is like, that's one of my goals.
Love it. That's your weekly elevation. What strikes me most about Justin's approach is his willingness to pursue what brings him genuine joy regardless of external expectations. Whether it's his perspective on building community around Titanic's End, his thoughts on mental health and high-pressure industries, or his advice on just enjoying the journey, these insights apply far beyond music. And his story reminds us that success isn't just about what you build, it's about who you become and the communities you create along the way. Sometimes the most fulfilling paths are the ones that don't make sense on paper, but they feel right in your heart. Remember, success in dance music isn't about luck, it's about strategy. I'll talk to you next week.